Well, let's reflect on the definition of yoga. Yoga in literal terms means union. In the philosophical term, yoga is used to describe the merger of part with the whole. Like a drop of the rain into the ocean. Whole is here referred to God Almighty, and part is referred to us, or our soul, or our true nature. Now, that's just an analogy so that we can understand the ocean and the drop, but truly God is infinitely big, complete in all aspects, is what we call God. Nothing lacking in God. On the other hand, soul, it's that it is also having this awareness of us as ego, as I am different from you or you. So that aspect separates us from God, and this whole life of human being is said to be bridging that gap of knowing who we are. Now, spiritually speaking, that is not just a philosophical question, it's an experience to be had. We want to not just believe in it that, okay, yes, we believe that we are soul, and we believe that there is God, and we believe that spiritual path suggests that we experience it. We work on experiencing it. And how do you experience it? Through our action, through our intellectual knowledge, through our love and devotion, and through our meditation. That's why we talk about the four aspects. So let's reflect a little bit more on spiritual aspect. The scriptures and many paths, many saints and mystics who are the knowledgeable are from different traditions. It's very interesting to note that even though many of the traditions who look different and have labeled difference, like even within the Hindu traditions, there are so many sects and so many paths of thinking, philosophies. But beyond that, there is Sikh philosophy, Jain philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, and you go into West, there's Christianity, there's Islam, there's Judaism. And you notice that there is some similarity, there's some commonness in many of this. So I'm going to reflect on two definitions. We all talk about merging with God, or connecting with God, or being with God. In the Eastern tradition, we call it moksha. Moksha is the ultimate goal of our human life. In the West, we call liberation. In the yogic tradition, we call realization, that self-realization or God realization. In just a philosophical terms, just shifting our attention from this identity that we have, what we call I, to an identity which is, where is God? So there is few terms which is very well understood and very well known and very lot spoken about. It's called, like one of the term, it's called the Mahavakya, it's called Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi is a term that is used in the Hindu, in yoga philosophy, to describe the unity of Atman as individual soul with Brahman, the absolute. It is typically translated as I am Brahman, or I am the divine. Similar Mahavakyas are Tattvamasi. So when the master is telling the disciple, he's saying you are that, which is same translation as I am Brahman, you are also Brahman. Another term is called Soham. Soham also reflects I am that. Now, what is that? What is God? And how powerful, how big it is? It's everybody agree to this point, that it is beyond the description. So we do not have to argue this. At least it is. We know that it is so vast and so powerful. It is difficult to describe or impossible to describe. You know, Kabir, one of the great saints, who says, if I take all the earth and make a paper out of it. And take all the trees and make the pencils. Imagine all the trees of the earth, make its pen. Take all the ocean and make its ink. And then write it on. I still not have enough to write about God. He actually talks about Guru, but he's referring to Guru and God as one concept at that time. So you can this is good enough to understand that it is an infinitely large concept that so every description could add up to say, yes, that is true. What you think, let's say you love the aspect of God as a parent, as a loving father. That's great. Somebody say, no, it's loving mother. That's also good. He's a friend. Okay, we agree with that also. You can say he's the all creator, all take care of everything. He's just disconnected from everything. That's true also. And so if you is infinite in space, infinite in time, so you keep describing and it all adds up and there is no conflict, right? Something is so large, so infinite. Your experience of that is true because that's what your experience is. So there's nothing to conflict. That's where the philosophy of the blind man and the elephants come. Because it's so huge, whatever our experience is true. However, I want to emphasize on the elements that we can experience. So that's what we can talk about. We can talk about few things. For example, is God all truth? That's one aspect that we can discuss and experience. God is all truth. What is truth? Something never changes. Something that is eternal. Obviously, nothing changes. So it never was born, never changes, never will die. It will remain same all throughout. It's also very powerful and persistent. It's always there. It doesn't go away. It's very powerful. So all truth is very persistent. The other aspect we can say is unconditional love. Now we all know conditional love. We all probably have either love pizzas or ice creams or chocolates or love our fellow beings in our family. But this is talking about unconditional love. The love that never changes. What do you expect from something that doesn't change? It's unconditional love. The unconditional love at least some glimpses can be experienced in life, if not the whole unconditional love. We do experience unconditional love from those who love us tremendously, like our mothers, or the closest example you can think about. In the Hindu tradition, at least, the mother is given a very high respect because they are ready to sacrifice their life. They will not think about fathers also given similar, but they come after mother. So this is to be experienced. We're talking about the experiences. The other experience we have is purity. Now purity is, now obviously there's chastity, there's thinking about bad things, not thinking about bad things. But a simple analogy I can think about is it's like a childlike, a pure child. A child is born, it's pure. That is why in the Eastern tradition, many who worship Lord Krishna in this child form. Because that's easy to relate to a child as a pure. Not only it's all loving and all truth, it's also childlike. Ultimate father is also the ultimate child. Like a child, there's innocence is what you can call it. No other element is there, it's innocence. The other characteristic we can think about is oneness. What is God? We consider God is not separate, it is there. It's within us, it's in everything. So what are the characteristics we talk about God is oneness. God is all, and Shankaracharya, and we have heard Dr. Ram Bachchan here many times, is the philosophy of Advaita, which means it's only one. And now everything else is the manifestation of that one. So oneness, how do we experience the oneness? When we see somebody who's different, but we still connect. I see that you are from a different country, I see maybe you're following different religion, maybe different philosophy, but still we connect. I see the same essence in you that I see in me. And that's an experience to have about God, and we can say, well, that is God. Like, if I see the connection with everyone, irrespective of they look different or they think different or we think they are different. And we see the connectedness. The another aspect of God we can reflect on is consciousness. Awareness. Right? We become aware of many things, and we can attribute that to our consciousness. Where is the consciousness coming from? So God is all consciousness, all knowing, all aware. One of the aspects in yoga tradition we talk about is awareness, and especially in the Buddhist mindfulness, we talk about awareness. Everything is just awareness. You can see, you can separate with the awareness. You can separate you from what is out there. That's not you. You are just the awareness. And that's an experience we all can have. We can all reflect on that. In the meditation, some of the masters will say, yeah, just aware, you just watch. Oh, my mind runs around. Okay, just watch. So some of the Upanishads talk about the state of sleeping and dreaming and awaken and deep sleep. It says, but everything in all of those states, what is common is awareness. So we can experience that. The other, if you put it all together, this like all truth, unconditional love, purity, consciousness, connectedness, it comes together to what we call human being. That's human being, or being human, is the pinnacle of all these characteristics. We don't have to go too far. So the saints and mystics says, where is God? Now, where do you go to experience this? You experience all of these characteristics within you. You don't have to go somewhere. It's not that you have to go to the mountain and then you go to the mountain to just get away from the distractions so that you can meditate. That's fine. But you have to reflect on it, to experience. In the Eastern philosophy, we call the human body is the highest temple. God resides in the body. God resides in everything, but we can experience in our body. I cannot go in your body and experience. I cannot go somewhere in the water and experience. I cannot go in the mountain or the caves. I can come to the temple and I see everybody is trying to experience it, and that creates a great atmosphere. I see everybody's worshipping. And so it is great atmosphere. It is very conducive for learning. But ultimately I have to experience myself within my body. True? So that leads us to different paths of knowing. So the journey of human being with the saints and mystics through the scriptures and through their satsangs and through their discourses, they all telling us that we as human being need to experience ourselves as who we truly are, which is the Almighty God. And if we don't experience this in this lifetime, we have missed the opportunity. So not only we can experience, that's a privilege we as human beings have. We have the capacity, we have all the tools and faculties available in the human existence. We also have a limited time. So there's urgency. Now obviously God is infinite, and ultimately the merger will happen. It's just it's supposed to happen, right? Because it's like every drop that leaves the ocean through evaporation ultimately makes the journey back to ocean. Right? I mean, you can look at the philosophy of it or just look at the science of it. Every drop that goes up, fall maybe on a mountain, maybe in the form of a snow. Maybe the snow will be there for years, sometimes hundreds of thousands of years. But somewhere it melts, gets into the stream. Maybe it will go into somebody's house or gutter, or some animal will drink it again. It will go through many, many cycles. Eventually it will get to the ocean, right? So our soul will eventually get to the ocean. But the saints and mystics are saying us that why suffer through many, many cycles of life and death? Why go through that? So they say 8.4 million species that we might cycle through if we let this body go. The next body may or may not be human being. and therefore your soul experience will continue. So the saints and mystics saying, well, you have the human body right now. It's a great opportunity to experience that. And you have everything, so all you need to do is work on it, which is why we are actually born. And if you reflect a little bit more deeper, is the soul is making the journey, is given this opportunity to say, okay, now do you want to know yourself? This is the opportunity. So even the human being, maybe the most crooked person, and you may say, oh, it's only for good people, right? Well, who's good and bad is not our judgment. Even you've heard stories after stories after stories. Even the worst person turned into a spiritual master, like Maharishi Valmiki, who wrote the Ramayana. And in the Buddhist tradition, there is a story of Angulimal. I mean, these stories are embedded in every tradition. You can find out that someone was so bad, but then they had a turnaround, almost a U-turn. And then they worked on it. So everyone has the opportunity. There is no exception. As long as we work on it, we can. So if the purpose of this life is to achieve this union or the yoga, and these are the kind of the milestones or the guiding principles of all truth, unconditional love, purity, oneness, consciousness, if we put together, is what we want to experience. That is our experience. We still cannot describe God. Even the saints and mystics say, end of the day, God is undescribable, is infinite, right? They don't say, oh, we know God, it is, exactly how it is, and let me tell you that. No, they say, I have some experience of it, and here it is, but it is infinite. The words are not sufficient to describe it. So there's another beautiful reflection here, in the Rig Veda. It says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. It's kind of embedded in one of the verses. It's not even full verse itself. But it says that there's only one truth. And the saints and mystics call in different terms, different words, different names, in different ways. They'd explain in different terms. But it's all one. There's only one truth. So just reflect on one truth. Right? We are here to realize that one truth. And that is what, if you is the summum bonum of all the scriptures, is how do I realize that one truth? And that's what we call the yoga. And so how does that reflect when we say, okay, so what is karma yoga and what is the bhakti yoga and the jnana yoga and the raj yoga? What is how they relate to this one yoga? So that's one philosophical way of looking at it. When we reflect on our lives, many of us think that, I need to I know what purpose of my life is. So let's go through are they separate? Are they separate path? Like, is there a choice that you can say, I'm just going to follow the karma yoga and I'm going to get to the goal? Or am I just going to follow the jnana yoga and get to the goal? So, if you reflect a little bit on in the initial spiritual development of us being, and I have gone through that initial development, or maybe still going through it, it appears to me that karma yoga is my duties. Doing it well is good enough. I'm a person of action. And I want to see the results. I mean, what's the point if you don't show the result, right? That's how we all think. If I go to work, if I don't get the salary, well, it's not worth it. If I don't become successful in my job, I mean, what's the point of, if you take away those things, then everything else doesn't matter. So, person of action thinks that God is in action. Even in some of the philosophical traditions, like the farmer who is producing grains thinks that is God. I work hard, I sweat, I produce food. Because if I don't do that, you will not be able to talk about God at all because you won't have the food. How about you take that away? So absolutely true, right? So that is, at the initial development, it seems that doing the duty is good enough, doing it right is good enough. The people who are following the jnana yoga side says, I want to understand intellectually. I want to go to the library, I want to read it, I want to know exactly what verse is saying what, who said it, when they said it, what they meant, and go into the scripture or the books or understanding in a logical discussion. The people who follow the Bhakti Yoga thinks, if I put love in my action, if I believe in myself, I devote to any cause, that is good enough. And many of you see around us, and we pick a cause and say, okay, now if I don't have to learn this yoga and everything, I'm serving, let's say, uneducated poor in India. That's great. Are they wrong? No, that's absolutely true. And so doing devotion at that level is great. Those who go into the Dhyana Yoga, the meditate, says all I have to do is close my eyes and experience calm and peace in myself, and if I am peaceful, everything is fine. I don't have to worry about knowing the truth. I just want to meditate and be peaceful. Those are the initial stages of conversation. But as we practice any of this path, we start going on any of this path, as we grow spiritually, then what happens? So I'm going to describe as intermediate stage of all of four development. So what the karma yogis start thinking, well, many times I do action and I don't get the results. How can I be peaceful without the results? Or I don't even know if sometimes the results are right or wrong. I may feel it is wrong, but sometimes the results are right. They show up their consequences sometime later. So you realize that, and if you read the scriptures, they say, how can I work without attaching to myself to the result? How can I be at peace? So you start doing the action, but now the additional component is, okay, I'll do my action and then whatever happens, happens. I'll go to work, I'll do my best project. Whether the company becomes successful or fail, it doesn't matter. Things will happen, it'll work out at the end. As long as I put the right thing. So that's a little bit evolved, right, from the action. What is the Jnana Yogis thinks? Oh, well, I have studied all the scriptures. And I find finally that everything is within me, because all the books are saying everything is within you. And so I should more focus on the intrinsic knowledge, not the exoteric knowledge. Does that make sense? So we are then, as an intellectual, as an evolved intellectual, you realize that what matters is the inner knowledge, the intrinsic knowledge, the esoteric knowledge. In the Eastern tradition we call the Paravidya, the knowledge of the beyond, which cannot be found in the books. You read books, and at the end of the book they'll say, okay, now you got to experience it. Go within. Meditate. Go within. Know yourself. In fact, you already know it. So get out of the way. So that's an intellectual progress from, I want to read the scriptures. The Bhakti Yoga start developing faith, because now they're putting love in action. They see that in true sense, the true devotion comes when I realize that I'm not the doer, God is a doer. And therefore I should just do my best and put my love in front of everything, whatever I do. The person who is the Dhyana Yogi says, now when I concentrate within, I start experiencing the inner region. I can experience that the mind is just a layer within me. It's not the whole thing. It is just a layer. And everything that I'm experiencing is through my mind is subjected to illusion. Therefore, I need to still my prajna, I need to still my attention and practice meditation more. And practice meditation with the purpose of knowing myself, not with just the peace, not with just the calm. I know, and there's nothing wrong with meditating for stress relief, medical benefits. Blood sugar, I need to meditate, I need to calm down. So there's nothing wrong with it. But as you meditate, as you go on this path, you realize that I need to experience something beyond the mind, because as long as I have the mind with me, it's creating stress in me. So let's continue. What happens when they reach even the higher stage? And I'm not saying final stage, but highest stage. The karma yogi starts thinking, he's not the doer at all. Who's doer? Yes, it appears that I go to work or I go and do this, I I do the social service, I go to the temple, volunteer, I go change people's life. The true karma yogi thinks is not the doer. Right? The doer is the God within, and I happen to be just experiencing it. And in the Bhagavad Gita, that in whether you achieve the success or failure, if you keep your steadfast attention in your duties and detach yourself from results, that's the highest karma yoga, right? The Jnana Yogi says the knowledge is not only within, but it's second nature of a realized soul. It's spontaneous. There is no need to be doing any effort. Those who are enlightened, you go to them and you ask them, like, do they read any scriptures any further? I mean, they do, but they know that everything is within. It's all spontaneous. It should become effortless. Like a child, knows everything. And I'll tell you a small story that my wife shared with me while we were driving here. So we do this meditation at our meditation center, and we invite families with children come. The children also meditate. So we used to have a lower limit of 5 years or 6 years for children to come and meditate. And so recently my wife said, no, I want to take care of those toddlers because they're just running around, they don't know what to do. And so she opened another section for the toddlers. Now imagine a toddler could be anywhere from 6 months to 5 years. Now what do you expect them to meditate, right? So they just have the concept of becoming quiet for a minute or two, and I'll let you speak at the end if you want to add anything to it. But basically it's a wonderful thing where the parents are drawn to bring their children, and they're saying, okay, if my child can sit for, like a 2-year-old or 1.5-year-old can sit for 30 seconds without disturbing anyone, that's a great meditation. So they bring, and we invite them, and we tell them stories, and we have fun time so they feel engaged. So we're not meditating with them for an hour or something. That's the adults trying to do. But the child are just being there, and they just be told, like, okay, when the parent meditate, let them meditate for 30 seconds or a minute. And so she told the story of one parent who told us that one day they were coming to the satsang. Now they don't talk to the child. It's a 1.5-year-old child, about 18, 19-month-old child. And they don't tell, okay, we're going to meditation. They just bring the child, put in the car, and they drive. And every week, probably they do every day same thing, right? So one day the car was turning towards the center, and the child cried happily, joyfully. So this is a parent telling. So the parent told that the child is aware that there is going to be meditation. And just got joyfully is happy. Not telling, there's no words to describe the happiness. But it's just shouting and is joyfully, and he kind of reflected that I know where we're going. So the parents, the mother especially, is a good reader. So you can see that, it touched my heart really actually. Look, a child is also aware. He just doesn't have the language, doesn't have the words, doesn't have the intellectual evolution to communicate the better, but the awareness is there. Because soul is not changing. Even though our bodies changes as we were born, the soul is exactly the same. It's same awareness. We just don't have the faculties to, talk intellectually. And same with the old age. In the old age, our bodies may not be able to travel. We may be sitting in the bed or sitting in our home in the corner, but we are fully aware. The soul is aware. And so that's the knowledge that we are talking, the spontaneous knowledge. So we're very happy that, we're allowing these children to, or their parents to experience. The children already learn it actually. We actually make them unlearn. Yes?
So what is your view of people that have dementia and the soul awareness?
So the soul is aware, absolutely. The consciousness is aware. It's just that don't have the mind, the mind, the brain. The brain is a hardware that the mind needs. I mean, I see because my eyes are there, and that's where I can communicate to you. What if my eyes were not there? Even though the mind is there, it's probably not getting the inputs to analyze things. So if the eyes become sick or the body becomes sick, then the information doesn't go to the brain. The brain becomes sick, then the mind is deprived of that information, and the behavior we call the person is sick. We call it we have all kinds of names, dementia, it could be any mental diseases, but the soul is still there and aware. The soul is above and beyond, it's completely disconnected from this. The soul is experiencing this, what we may call as a painful life. And the saints and mystics look at us and say, you're living a painful life because you're unaware. So we think, they are living a painful life, but maybe the soul may be happy, maybe they're just wrapping up their karma. So we are experiencing that karma is based on what our previous life is, but the soul is completely disconnected and completely aware within that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's why we are. Not only the parents, but we are supposed to treat everyone equally and lovingly because the same soul in them.
So, given your philosophy, you could say someone that's experiencing Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever, that maybe the soul is just taking up more real estate, and maybe that explains what's going on because their brain is shutting down because they're focused on their soul. Is they're getting more towards enlightenment? Does that make any sense?
No, I would not necessarily characterize that enlightenment about it, but the soul is observing. Soul is the awareness. In this human life, those who can, which most of us can, spend time to shift our awareness from the body to the soul. So work out of the identity of the soul is all awareness, and then we exhibit these 5 characteristics we talked about: unconditional love, connectedness, bliss, and so on. But if we identify ourselves with body, then we experience, body is suffering, that means I'm suffering. Body is having temperature, so I'm sick. Body is throwing up, so I'm sick. But the soul, if you're at the soul level, you say, there is temporary challenge with the body, but I'm at peace. So those who shift their attention and are able to do this in this lifetime, and many people do, and you can see that as they go towards the death, they are at peace. That's why, in our many traditions, in a Hindu tradition, they said those who are able to remember God at the end are the ones which are on the right track. Why? Because they have the stillness to remember it even in the time of pain and suffering and while their body is going away, because they have worked all their life to detach from the body, to realize that they are soul, and therefore it doesn't affect them as much as if somebody will say, if I'm only the body and the body is decaying, oh my God, what's next? So all kinds of fears and all kinds of suffering then creep in, even though it's not necessary, even though that's not true. It's just an illusion. It's like you go to a movie theater and then for 2-3 hours you think that's real. But even if the worst movie, if you realize it's just a movie, it's just going to be over and I'll be fine. I'm not in that. It's exactly like the soul is watching this movie, or you can call it the state of dream. This is having an experience, and like this dream will be over and then the soul will wake up to be the astral plane and say, that life, that was just an experience, but I'm here, fine. And then the astral experience, there's another causal us. So the saints and mystics describe that we exist in the layers, and there are four layers, which is kind of broadly talked about: the physical, the astral, the causal, and the supercausal, and then the truth. It's all truth. So just the body consciousness, rising above the body consciousness is not enough. You may still be under the trap of emotional and the mind. So therefore the journey has to be spiritual. That's why we talk about the yoga means the ultimate, the merger with the ultimate truth, not like just rising above the body. That's just a step one. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but what you're suggesting is, if somebody's suffering through disease, is he really suffering? It depends on their spiritual evolution. And they may be suffering if they're not evolved. They may associate themselves with the body. But if they have evolved themselves over the period, then they just see this as a passing storm. And that's what we are trying to get this data. Does that make sense?
Some people say the dementia is more affects the family, and then the person experiencing it may be totally happy and at peace.
True, absolutely true. Because the other family have to take care of them physically and have to, change their schedule and change their priorities, and that's the problem.
And then they don't recognize them.
They don't recognize them. They may be fine and be happy at peace. So, but the question is, we can't assume in one way or the other. It's for us, we have to see that so that I can be at peace all the time, no matter what, I have to work to do the practices of yoga, which is meditation, devotion, doing my duties correctly, and so on. So let me just wrap up this, because the last point is the meditation, the highest experience of meditation is exactly, the journey. And you experience that light in meditation. You experience that who you are. And, it's not a philosophical question. So I'm very fortunate to learn the technique of meditation, where you not only just know as an intrinsic knowledge, but you experience it. You experience that light. You experience the inner realms that the saints describe, that this is physical plane, there's an astral plane, which is a subtle plane, which is also within us. It's not outside of us, it's right within. We're already having, there's a Hindu scripture that talks about the 5 shells. So we're experiencing these 5 shells. So the meditator start noticing the higher and higher shell. Astral, the causal. I see I'm a causal body, I'm the cause, but there's another body which is super causal, the cause of the cause. And then there is all truth, which is all love, all truth, which we call the highest state of awareness. So if you look at all these evolved yogas, they're all merging together. They're all coming together to realize that I am that. So these 4 paths to me are not distinct, separate. They're more like 4 wheels of a car that all needs to run. Or you can say, since we talked about the elephant analogy, they are the 4 legs of the elephant on which it walks. As we grow spiritually, and no matter how we started, wherever we start, it's like climbing to the Mount Everest. If you may start from Nepal, you may start from China, you may start from other place. Now obviously there will be one easier path and one will be lightly difficult. That's why certain people go certain proven paths. But eventually when you grow up, it's all one. It's all the peak of the Everest. And the experiences can be described in 4 aspects. So instead of, to me, calling the 4 paths, I would rather call them 4 aspects. It's like a diamond, it has 4 facets. You may have a favorite facet because that's how you see your life. There's nothing wrong in any path. In fact, the Hindu traditions and the Eastern tradition talk about every path is great. Not only every path is right, every path is great. In fact, how many paths are there? As many people. As many people, because each one, even though you may be going to the same temple, you may be having, you call yourself the same religion, but you may be having your own journey, your own trajectory. And so what's important is follow that trajectory towards the goal. What's important is direction. What's important is the ultimate purpose, not how it unfolds. And so sometimes the work is important, sometimes the devotion is important, and all of the 4 aspects of the facets need to work together so we can reach the goal. And I'd like to conclude. There are many ways to describe the philosophy. So since it is infinite, it's very interesting. I was just researching to say how many, is it 4 or 5 or 6? So, in the Ramayana, they talked about the Ravana as the 10 emotions. So you may say, Ravana, the goal at the Ramayana time was to overcome the 10 emotions. And they describe as the 10 head of the Ravana. And you can research, Google it, whatever. It's the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, which means lust, anger, greed, attachment, arrogance, jealousy, mind, intellect, consciousness, ego. Rising above the 10 emotions to get to God. So that's the Ramayana time. Then further, Puranas time, they started describing the 9 nidhis, or the 9 treasures. The 9 planets. And there are many ways to split it up. The planet has their own effects. So the people who are, like my father was an astrologer, he liked to research the future. And the planets are telling you the story. So you know, that's one way to do. There's 8 siddhis. The yogic path, the tantric or the yogic path says the 8 siddhis. And that's also like anima, mahima, garima, lagima, prapti, if you're interested in those research. So there are 8 siddhis, and the Patanjali said about the eightfold path of knowing the truth. Or in the Western tradition, they call overcoming 7 deadly sins. So you see how that is progressing. So it's 6 or 7. There are 6 laws of mind also talked about. That's one way of looking at it. There are panchakoshas I talked about. Panchakoshas, or the 5 elements. Rising above the 5 elements, or the panchakosha, which is the 5 bodies. Like the 5 koshas are the physical, the astral, the causal, and the supercausal, and the true. 4 yogas we just talked about today, or 3 gunas. There's another way to philosophy to say rising above the 3 gunas. So you can see slowly, you know, if you keep evolving, you notice that rising above all of these differences to be one. And ultimately, in practical, I'll conclude with the practical, and then we'll meditate for 10 minutes, hopefully. Ultimately, there is only 2 things happening. One is your effort, and the next is the grace. Grace. Okay. Grace of God. So effort and grace. You know, my spiritual teacher talks about it like, you can do effort in the right direction. Meditate, do your job, have love and devotion in your heart. Practice knowledge and go through intellectual learning, because they're necessary. Nobody can say intellectual is bad. It's necessary. We need some intellectual so we can practice, so that when we practice we experience, so we develop love for it, and then we practice more, so the cycle continues. And therefore ultimately it boils down to one thing, that is your effort and God's grace. What you experience, now you can't say that, if I meditate I have to experience light. Maybe you won't experience light for a few weeks or days. Whenever you do, that's the grace. And so one starts recognizing the grace element. The fact that we are human being is a tremendous grace. The saints and mystics talk about the fact that we could be in any other shape and form, and we may have no opportunity to evolve ourselves to the Brahman experience, but we're very lucky that we're a human being. So let us use this opportunity. Do your effort, the grace will come, but God's will. And in the aspect of spirituality, we learn to accept God's will. So that will conclude my lecture. So ultimately boils down to the effort and grace. The more effort you put in, the grace more comes. The more grace you come, you are able to put more effort, and the cycle completes, and ultimately you achieve the oneness that you want. You can call it divide into 4 yogas, you can divide into 5 koshas, or you can divide into 8 folds. It's up to you. The truth is that we have to make an effort. If we don't make effort, all of the philosophy is useless. So how about we meditate for 10 minutes, and then we'll open the questions. Does that sound okay? I'll say the instructions, and this is an exercise for us to ignore the surrounding. So I don't treat as a distraction. I see as a lesson, because all of us are here, I see, is evolved enough to practice that level of meditation, where you can completely ignore or tune out of what's happening surrounding. Just let's sit for 10 minutes, and I will get you out of meditation in that time. So please close your eyes, relax yourself. Find yourself in a comfortable pose with your eyes closed. Gaze in front of you and just ignore everything else, all the inputs coming from the ears or other senses, let it be passing information which we do not want to attach to. And just focus on gazing in front of us. When you gaze, what is gazing is your inner eye. Not the physical eyes, but the inner eye. And so you become aware of this inner eye, and therefore, if you spend more time with the inner eye, you become aware of the soul. Your awareness comes as a form of light experience. So, please pay attention to the middle of whatever happens. And continue repeating the God's name in your mind, or a mantra. Meditate for next 10 minutes, and I'll get you out of meditation at that time. Thank you. Oh, please gently leave off. One last point I'd mention before closing is, one of the effort that we should do is be open to a spiritual teacher. There's nothing like being in the company of a spiritual teacher who gives us all the guidance and experience. Any teacher, whatever you know, is your teacher. It's an intrinsic knowledge. It's not something somebody should tell. So you would see your teacher, but having an open mind to a spiritual teacher makes accelerate your journey. So thank you very much for coming. If there any question, I'm happy to spend some time. Any comment, questions on the topic today?
Just a comment.
Yeah, please.
It's very profound. That discourses are right here, which really resonated with me.
Okay.
Because I always, not knowing much about Hinduism, I read one book, doesn't make you an expert.
What's it?
By reading one book, doesn't make you an expert.
Yes.
I always read one book.
Right.
So, in my way of thinking, all these paths are simultaneously necessary.
Yes.
I always have felt that.
Exactly.
That, karma yoga may be what we have to do something. But how do we do that unless we have the knowledge?
Exactly.
And for me at least, without bhakti yoga, devotion,
Yes.
it's very hard to remain on that path.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So when that comes in, and then Raja Yoga meditation, you often don't think about that, right? But it's very, very good, and I don't practice meditation, and I should. That it kind of calms your mind.
It is.
And keeps you on path.
Yes.
Where you're going to go. So I think all these four, and then what you mentioned about trying and maybe, keep detached from the results.
Yes.
Some ways, right?
Yes.
You may see that light, or you may not see that light.
Exactly.
Maybe not in this lifetime. And then for me, this idea of reincarnation, that there's another chance, and yet another in this world without boundaries, right? Whether it's scientific or not, who knows? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You have the life right in front of you. In fact, those who do not believe in the reincarnation should work even harder, because you don't even have a chance. If you work harder, and then eventually you will see the point, and whatever is your realization. So I agree with you.
So,
Beautiful.
With us, that's the greatest thing about Hindu philosophy, is it's so open-ended.
It is.
It is, everything is voluntary. Everything is somewhat optional.
There are like 7 billion people, there are 7 billion paths, and the Hindu philosophy says that's all right. Because there is there's a reflection on the characteristics and common, and you can, it's like, as you said, resonate. What we believe is resonating with, and now the more and more people, if you listen to all the paths, and you say, they're not saying anything drastically different. I know they're using different words, and sometimes different way to explain it. Maybe some explains it one way or the other, but the essence, and that's the message I'm getting, is this essence is exactly the same.
whole idea of, like I often say, let's say you work for hunger causes. People, we darn well know that at the end of the day, there'll be more hunger. Right?
Yes.
But we go on, right?
We feed our neighbor and we feed the child in front of us, and we know that 1,000 years ago somebody was trying to do that. We still have hunger, and probably 5,000 years later there will be still hunger. That is necessary for the karmic cycle to work. So people have to go through the experience. But for you, your duties are to serve when you see them. To ignore it is you're not doing your karma with the detachment. So absolutely, I think what you said is for doing one path, you need the knowledge of others. You cannot just based on one leg or one wheel run the whole vehicle. And in order to get to do the karma right, you have to have the knowledge of what you need to do right. In order to do it right, you need to put love and devotion in it. And in order to realize that I can do it, you have to be aware of who you are. And that's where the Raja Yoga, the meditation comes. It's basically when you stop all the stimulants from outside, you become aware and tune into something profound which is within you. You are just tuning from. It's like the people, and you're from science. You know that the scientists who are trying to study the center of our Milky Way galaxy, right? They go to Chile, or they actually launch a satellite. So they want to go away from this city, and they can't sit here and watch it because there's so much distraction. They don't understand the focus. They understand that I need to remove distraction. It's the science. In order to get that faint signal, it's getting lost. It's very powerful if I know about the origin of the Milky Way, right? And the scientists understand the importance of it, so they pursue it. They're ready to go into the mountains. They're ready to put the equipment there, ready to shun the luxury of the day-to-day family life and everything. They're kind of sannyasis, except their goal is to know what is physical galaxy center. What we are trying to do, we don't have to go physically anywhere. We just have to learn to tune out of this world every time to time, so you become aware. You can see the whole universe is within you. You are actually the pinnacle of the universe, and unique pinnacle. Not, somebody else is also, but you're unique. There's a reason why you exist. And there is the whole power that creative power that created you is there, and you can experience it. And if the more you pursue meditation, and meditation doesn't say that only meditate, but don't help the hungry person, or do not be devoted, or in fact, actually, you cannot truly meditate without love in your heart. The love and devotion, and the knowledge of how to meditate, or even why I meditate, and to really truly understand the purpose of meditation it's a Jnana Yoga. You cannot meditate, otherwise if you don't know the real reason, you'll be meditating, just because I see other people looking there, close eyes, and then you'll be confused, like, I don't see the same thing, what he's talking about, there is nothing, there's only darkness. So it is important to have all the 4 or all the 8, depending on how you see, is to put it together. The importance of the gurus cannot be, that's very critical. It's because everything in the universe, everything as a human being we learn through some teacher. Everything. You can take anything. You need some teacher, some role model. Now sometimes the teachers are in disguise, like somebody teaches you without telling you that I'm teaching you, right? The teacher is not necessarily front. So there is inspirational teachers, like, somebody is, we are listening to this musical shows and somebody says, no, my inspiration is, I don't know, somebody rock star saying Michael Jackson is my inspiration. I watch him and I want to emulate. So we all have teacher. Without the teacher, we will not function. We have some inspiration, and spirituality is no exception. In fact, it's the hardest thing, where we absolutely need an example. If the teacher has achieved it, only then I can see it can be achieved. Otherwise, it's just a theory. I'm not truly I'm not going to follow. If I see someone doing it, if that person can do it, how did you do it? Okay, then that's the right way.
And on the meditation, I was telling Arvind I just went through eye surgery, which is why I brought the pirate. And the doctors were shocked when I said, no, I'm not going to take your anesthesia, I'll just meditate. And then we took my blood pressure after, and it hadn't changed. I went through the whole surgery, my blood pressure did not go up at all. Because the meditation is just so powerful, you know, that it can take, and then I couldn't close my eyes because it was eye surgery. And,
That's right. That's an amazing example of. Now, of course, you knew your capacity. Of course, I wouldn't say that somebody who doesn't really have practiced meditation
well, no, but the thing
to do
about-
that. But yeah,
there was no pain. They put a sedation in my eye. There was no pain. It's just like going to the dentist and they get Novocaine and I don't get the extra. So there was no pain. It's just that everybody else is freaks out. But if you recognize I'm not my body and I could just sit here and go elsewhere while the doctor's
just the awareness. Yep.
then I got through it, and then all the instructions they give you after the surgery, I realized were all about the sedation, not the eye surgery. The eye surgery is nothing.
That's true. So practically you used it. There's a similar story of one of a spiritual teacher that he did. So he had to go through some treatment on his arm, and so he was chatting and talking, and the doctors kept giving him some injection and didn't tell him why he's giving injection. And they said, we have been trying to numb your hand for like last 2 hours and we are not able to numb it. He said, why didn't you just tell me? I would have just done it. Like, you could have just told me. He said the sedation didn't work on him. So it was a very interesting and funny story, which says, like, okay, you should have told me that you want to operate on it and you want my hand to be numb. That's it. You just tell me. Boom, it's done. So it is, those are impressive, kind of gives our mind something to feed. But what is yours is your own experience. There's nothing, you can only see the other's experience and get inspired to have your own. What is with you is your experience. That is what is your true knowledge is. That is what you lives with you, and that goes with you beyond this lifetime as well. So.
But you need to get past the physical to get to the other plane.
Totally.
So that's why it's, but even if you never get to the other planes, there's the benefits of it.
Very beneficial. If nothing else, you feel the relaxation, the stress-free, just the focus, or scientifically it is 4 times more powerful than the sleep. So if you can truly practice meditation, and if you practice 1 hour, you get the rest equal to 4 hours of sleep. I don't think any time management guru will say that's bad.
So there's no downside.
Yeah. So any other question, comment? Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Arvind.
I just want to close with a prayer, as a tradition here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.